The flood emergency continues across Victoria with hundreds of homes inundated. Our senior Victorian reporter Simon Love is in Maribyrnong. Simon, how bad is the situation there?
Fairly bad at the moment, Matt, and this is just one street in the suburb of Maribyrnong, Wood Street, where a number of these homes have had their front yards inundated with water. We've actually seen in the last 10 minutes or so Fire Rescue Victoria rapid response crews come and do assessments of all these homes to see if any further swiftwater rescue crews need to come in on their dinghies and essentially rescue people from some of those homes further down this street. And the speed of which this water is actually moving is actually quite concerning, and there's a bridge not too far from where we are, the Rayleigh Street Bridge, that's been closed for much of the day. But this afternoon, as the focus now moves towards a bit more recovery and clean up, there's started to be some anger from some of the residents as to some of the warnings, or at least lack of warnings that they're saying, the assessment choppers and the news choppers continue being overhead, trying to get a good look at the damage in and around these homes of Maribyrnong, in the suburb of Maribyrnong. It's thought up to about 100 homes have been impacted. Let's have a listen to one resident who spoke to my colleague Julia Bradley earlier about her concerns about the warnings.
There was no community meeting. They knew this was coming up. There was also no pamphlet or any address to come here. So I knew where to go, but neighbours didn't. So giving them directions, that'd be helpful.
So in Maribyrnong, this is really ground zero for the effort here in metropolitan Melbourne, but there are concerns that some of this flood emergency will now stretch to suburbs even beyond here in Melbourne. There are flood warnings out for the Werribee River, which is in Melbourne's west as well. There's also been flooding occurring at Heidelberg and Bulleen, which is in Melbourne's northeast. So looking at some of the pictures coming in from the helicopter, you can see that this devastation is going into many homes here in metropolitan Melbourne. This is only one aspect of that flood emergency. But what I want to play you now is just what the authorities were saying in response to what that lady is saying, what that lady told Julia Bradley. Here was Tim Wiebusch from the SES yesterday. We don't have that grab, so I'll just continue on. But what Tim Wiebusch from the SES was saying yesterday was that he thought only 3 homes and a tavern, the Anglers Tavern, which you would have seen on our coverage right throughout the day, would go under. Well, if you look just at this street here, many more homes have been impacted. So clearly, when the emergency warnings and the text messages came through, many residents got a shock here in Maribyrnong. But, this flood crisis certainly continuing to spread right across the state into Rochester's obviously of major concern at the moment. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, he has been flying in a helicopter at the moment to assess all of the damage, particularly throughout central Victoria. He's just landed in the Goulburn Valley in Shepparton and will be meeting with crews there, as really the flood response centres around that town of Shepparton. It will be of some concern for a couple of days, Matt.
Yeah, Simon, we're just looking at some live pictures now that are coming in, and you really do get a picture of exactly how high that water level is. In fact, we're seeing people who are basically standing on the second story of houses in the Maribyrnong area where they're obviously surrounded by floodwater. Just give us an idea of what the public mood's like there. Obviously, a lot of people, from what you're saying, didn't seem to be expecting this flood situation to be as bad as it is.
Well, yeah, and it's a suburban area too, Matt. We're only 15 kilometres away from Melbourne's CBD, essentially right next to Flemington Racecourse, and it's been amazing to think that Flemington Racecourse hasn't gone under. There's been some local debate here about, some of the flood levies that were put in place by Flemington a couple of decades ago. It was opposed by residents at the time, but it seems to have probably protected the racecourse as we stand today. Now, there's also been some impacts in and around areas near here, suburbs such as Kensington and Ascot Vale. So they're of concern as well. And the speed and the velocity of which this water is going down the Maribyrnong River is also, I don't see it easing up. But certainly, just speaking to our colleagues here, the level of which this water has been dropping. It has been dropping, so that's good news, but certainly they want to see this level dropping even further, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen warnings out for places in Melbourne's north as well, including Brunswick, Coburg and Northcote. So an evolving situation there in Melbourne at the moment. Just stay with us here on Sky News. Coming up next, we're going to have more of this flood coverage from Victoria as we keep an eye on the situation there.